welcome back to episode 2 of Chatterbox. My guest this month is the incredible Hartwin Dhoore, and you'll find out in a second why I'm pronouncing that wrong, from the Flanders region of Belgium. I first discovered him as part of Trio Dhoore, where he's playing with his brothers Ward and Cohen. I have all of their albums that I listen to very regularly. They're sadly now no longer working all together, but he does continue to work with Ward in Sega, and also with VRL and Hartwin and Ross, who you're going to hear about a little bit later in the podcast, and the Hartwin Dhoore trio. I was very fortunate to have Hartwin lead a Melodeon over on my Patreon just recently, all about how to write your very first tune. And if you're interested in getting into composition or tune writing, or if you write already and you need some fresh tips and advice, you can catch up with that in your own time via the recording on my Patreon that's posted there. I'll leave a link down below so you can find that. Hartwin is an award-winning composer of many beautiful melodies, and today I'm grateful to sit down and talk more about creative problem solving in music and life, catching up with his latest work in progress unfolding, and how his approach to composition and touring life has changed since becoming a father for the first time. Just a heads up that when I interviewed Hartwin, unfortunately I was getting over a cold, so you will hear a little bit of a snotty voice, and I apologise for that. Without further ado, let me introduce Hartwin Dhoore. Hey Hartwin, welcome to Chatterbox. How you doing?
Hi. Yeah, I'm good. Nice to be here, invited for a chat.
It's early in the morning for you. You had a gig last night, a little bit too far away, maybe.
Yeah. I was in the Netherlands yesterday, about 300 kilometers from where I live, so I had a bit of a drive, but yeah, it was nice.
Before we go any further, I feel a little bit ashamed to be asking you this now. I didn't realise I would be saying your surname wrong, and I realised from an Instagram post that you put out at the beginning of this week that you've changed your name because people can't pronounce it right. So tell me, please, how do you pronounce your second name?
So my second name is pronounced Dhoore.
Dhoore. Oh, okay. I can manage that. I will do better next time, basically.
But with a soft, like the H is barely spoken out. So it's Dhoore, but you say Dhoore. I've talked with lots of people about my first name because in Belgium I know one other person who's called Hartwin in all Flanders. And now I just got like a phone call from a friend last week who named his son also Hartwin. So now we're...
What does it mean? What does Hartwin mean?
It means strong friend. So I can live with that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So
yeah.
Strong friend Dhoore. Okay, I can go. During that like Instagram update, it was lovely that I saw that when I did, because we're recording this I think 3 days later, and it just kind of gave me a sense of where you're at right now in your life. And obviously you have a young son and a young family. So how is it being on the road versus being at home, and like managing and dealing with being a dad now?
Yeah, it's challenging from time to time. I think I manage quite well, but he's now, let me see, 1 year and 8 months. The first year was hard because you've never been in that place before in your adult life where you just have to be there in certain moments. You also have no practice in dealing with like, when am I doing what? Yeah, and you're also, just before I became a dad, I'm in that place where I just have lots of work piled up. There was COVID, but it was also kind of ending, so that was very challenging, but that's what all parents say. After the first year, you adapt and you adjust, and then you kind of find a balance. Yeah, I'm a self-managing artist, so I have no manager. There is, I think, 1 or 2 booking agents I work together with, but apart from that, I'm doing all admin myself, and that's a huge pile of work, all organizing of tours and logistics and those kind of things. But that I manage quite well. I think it's just like this, being away, being abroad, being gone for a longer time is challenging, because in the end it's for me to decide how much time I want to spend and how I want to organize my touring life. Because in the end, it's just I miss out because it goes so fast.
There's so many milestones that you must just get WhatsApp videos of, oh, look, he's speaking or babbling or smiling.
Yeah. I also learned that it's better when I come home to just ask an update from my girlfriend, because I start from that point where I ended before I left on a tour. But if I'm gone for 10 days, I come home and then I just start acting towards him from the point where I left him. Then she's like, yeah, he's not doing that anymore. Or like, he doesn't eat that way anymore. He doesn't walk like, he started to walk now, so you don't need to lift him anymore. Yeah? These kind of things. So yeah, a great link kind of in there with being a father and being a musician is that it changed me a lot also in how I feel in certain situations when I'm on the road where things are different than you expected. That's a great thing I think about becoming a father, is that you just have to, yeah, exactly what you say, like there is no system. It's just acceptance of what is. And in the beginning it's just so crazy because you're just constantly like, that's how it is now. And then I feel on the road there is so many unexpected elements constantly where you're like, it's like the PA is not as great as I had hoped for, or like, now it turned out,
It's always the PA.
or it's like, there's less people showing up, or the hotel isn't reserved, or there's just lots of tricky things when you tour. Yeah, I feel that's very different, that like I managed to just sit with that and then just say like, well, tomorrow's another day, we're just still gonna be here. That's also the thing with a child, like in the end you understand that it's all about how you respond to whatever happens to you, no matter what. Because you cannot say like, this child, there's something wrong with this child. It's like, no, no, it's not. It's just how you're gonna deal with it. So, that made my life easier as an artist also.
That's really nice to hear, and actually something that I'd never considered. But yeah, just learning to roll with the punches. I mean, touring life will teach you that. And trying to be humble and understanding of other people's problems that might be impacting on your touring gigs and scheduling. I mean, you play in a number of lineups all across Europe. I mean, it always fascinates me when I see your tour dates announced and it's like, wow, he's literally lining them up back to back pretty much. Honestly, I don't aspire to do that because I know for me, I just would not be a healthy person doing that. It would not suit me. But how do you make it work?
Yeah, I think that like it's good to say that, especially in 2023, I felt like it was like a kickback effect from COVID, from not having any gigs at all, and then like people waiting and waiting to actually start booking bands again, and venues were waiting and like, we'll see. But then like in 2023, it really came in motion, and there had been like shows booked in 2021, 2022 for 2023. And I remember that then with all the musicians, we were in this place where we're like, we take whatever we can get. If we get an offer, we say yes. And we're just going to be more flexible also on budgets and to just get rolling again. But then like at the end of 2022, some more concerts came in, that like venues starting up and like the more proper gigs. And I was like, whoa, I haven't had such a full calendar in years. And I just come out of 3 years doing absolutely nothing. So I talked a lot with colleagues about that. And like, I think lots of them, and me included, struggled a bit with the anxiety when just going through the calendar, like, how are we going to manage this? It's just so much.
It's been like such a strange time, like the rollover gigs and like that recovery syndrome almost. It's like you have to say yes to those because they were in the diary originally. You've got obligations to fill and they're gigs you want to do probably. But then, like you say, you get new venues opening up, new opportunities coming because you've got good-hearted people out there that are realizing that the scene isn't what it was and they're trying to do as much as possible to get it going again. But and I don't tour, I don't tour. I do pockets, but I can see from what my friends are going through that it's a totally different ball game now in terms of taking split deals, like 60-40 percentage deals, or wider. And it's it's tough for everyone, like promoters, venue owners, everything.
Yeah, I think the amount of gigs, or like getting gigs, is actually not harder, I think, like than before COVID. But what everybody struggles with, and that's like we're all in that together, is just ticket sales.
Yeah.
We see that people stay away. It's hard to put a number on it, but I would say that like 35 to 40% less ticket sales in general on whatever you do. And it's like, I feel like in 2022, there was just so much constant arguments in trying to point out whose fault it is. And I got tired of it. It's like, but the musicians, and they don't do promo. And then the musicians to the venues, like, you have too many acts lined up, and like, you're not doing specific promo for us. And then like, now in 2023, it's just like, you have done so many concerts with so many different people in so many different cities, funded, unfunded, in the week, in the weekend. whenever that we finally in that place where we say we need to do something as an industry or as a just as a music scene, because it's even for different genres like that. I think the only thing you could say is that these massive things that are really famous and where tickets cost lots of money, people are still willing to spend money on that. That's for me something that is like, okay, what's up with people's curiosity? And I feel that like in terms of I want to spend money on something that is more like a discovery to me. That's completely gone. And I stopped watching news in COVID times and all mainstream media. I don't watch any of that anymore. I have to see that my mental health is like so much better because it's just so negative. But if I hear from my parents, for example, or people around me, like what is reported in there, I'm like, it's all based on fear. You're not going to be able to pay for your bills for the heating. Food prices are going up. So I think automatically a big percentage of population or people who love to go to live music concerts, they're like, I'll buy myself a ticket for Ed Sheeran if it costs me £200. Doesn't matter. I know what I'm gonna get. But they're not willing to spend £20 on a band that is very appreciated, that they haven't seen before, but that's like, okay, look at the reviews, look at they're really rolling, but those people stay away. And not all of them, of course. There are lots of people who keep coming to the gigs. And yeah, I don't want to complain too much, but it's just for me, like I'm just glad that whatever actually is at play is that we are understanding that it's a community thing that we need to think about. How are we going to solve that? And not like, whose fault is it? That's ridiculous.
Pointing fingers isn't like productive at the end of the day.
Oh.
The other night you joined me on Patreon to teach a Melinar for me, and I was very grateful that you did. You taught your methodology or elements of your methodology on how to write your first tune. I found it incredibly inspiring, mostly because I thought, oh, I do that as well. Oh, I do that as well. So for me as a composer, as a tune writer, it was validating. But I think for other people who are just getting into that, it was, very inspiring just to know that, oh, there doesn't have to be a right or wrong. I think people often get into that headspace of, I need to do it right. When we're first starting new things, I can even get into that headspace. So thank you for sharing that. You also very humbly shared your journey of creating a piece on your new album, Unfolding, which I supported the Kickstarter for. I was very pleased to see that was successful. Can you tell us where that's at? Like, how is that project coming together?
Yeah, so I think it's the first album that I'm producing that I will have worked on for quite a long time. I created the basic melodies in, 2020, I think. Or
you used your COVID time. Essentially, this is your COVID project.
Yeah, but I've done. I think if I count that in, that I put out material for 3 albums during the COVID time. So that's basically an album a year. So I think I was productive during COVID. During my winter holidays, I decided that I want to bring the album out in February 2025. So yeah, it's going to be quite a journey. But I learned that it's very beautiful to plan and to actually have time to do things. But then on the other hand, there's always the danger that you slow down so much because there's time and you're not really getting on with it. So that's always a balance. It needs to kind of naturally flow. It's also the first album that I don't make in terms of doing live touring. The folk music scene, it's too small to make any income from streaming or physical sales. So you just need to put the album out and then you get a release tour. But now I thought that, okay, I want to make a record that just I want to make. I'm just not gonna care if there's any return on investment, or like just gonna look for a way how to fund it and then make that. And I think COVID kind of got me into that point where I was like, okay, if I would die and then like I didn't make the record, I'm gonna be like, why didn't I make that record? Because that's what I really wanted to make.
I kind of had a very similar. I mean, I have 1 album to my name. You have far more compositions. Although,
doesn't matter.
But this album, I'll just hold it up on screen. From Darkness Comes Light was a passion project, and I knew it was always going to be like that. I'd written these things over 10 years. All of the tunes on here, bar 1 track, are original compositions. And I thought I need to do something with this. They're too good just to sit and do nothing. So I wanted to make the album, but I was just so fearful. I was so critical of myself. My mental health was in such a bad way over a lot of that time. which is where the music came from. But I knew that the thought of touring, the thought of gigging just fills me with fear, fills me with dread. So it's like, I'm not going to do that, but I need to make this album.
Yeah.
I recorded it during lockdown, was lucky enough to have a successful Kickstarter campaign. You know, I've performed those things live, but thought of doing a full-blown tour, it's not how my mind is currently geared up. I need to do this for creative substance. And I spoke to some friends. Do you know Tom Kitching? He's a fiddle player from the northwest even.
I don't know if we personally acquainted, but I know who he is. Yeah,
he's a very my zany friend who I always kind of like use as a soundboard. He's given me a lot of really good advice over the years. He once said to me something along the lines of, as an artist, you've just got to create. You've just got to make art that suits you. He's been lucky enough to have tours and gigs, and he's very busy. He does all sorts of different things, and he's now kind of framed his life as an author. He's a very talented and very funny author. As a unique person that stands out from the crowd, I always look to him for, what's Tom doing? Where's Tom's head at? You know, how is he kind of talking himself into doing these passion projects? Because I think they're vitally important as creative people.
Yeah. I think for lots of artists, that's very uplifting to listen to other artists, to hear like how they work or what they do, or to share where they're at. And especially when they also share like their fears around certain things, or the places where they slow down or struggle or don't know anymore. For me, it's like one of the reasons why it took quite a long time to come in motion, kind of, to start working on this album, or to even decide that I'm gonna make it. It's like I had the melodies ready, but then they actually got like back into the cupboard out of fear, because I'm like, I can't do it. And for me, it really swifted when I listened to some podcasts with people who are not into folk music at all, but just like, there was one very inspiring podcast that I listened to with like one of our very appreciated writers in Belgium, and he just got like with his latest book he produced a movie from it. One of the things I remember that he said was like, you really need to be willing to do it, but every step along the road you also need to shit your pants a little bit. But it's still enough belief that you like push the gas pedal all the way down, no matter what it takes. And like I found that like very inspiring, and it really helped me to just get on to the next step. To answer your question more specific about that album, is that I just before Christmas I finished to record all the strings. So there's a string trio in there with viola, violin and cello, and then accordion, of course. I recorded together with them in one room all the accordion lines and the string lines. And so that's done now. I work together with people from the classical music scene that I've never encountered before. And I asked them like, okay, how are we going to do this? And then like they name their price and they say like, yeah, for that price, we can offer you 2 rehearsals of each max 4 hours and 1 day of studio recording. So I basically put the whole album down in 1 day.
Wow.
And they are so trained that that's reasonable to do. And I mean, when I talk a full studio day, it's not my kind of full studio day. For me, a full studio day, that would be like, we arrive at 8, we start to track at 9, and then like there is actually time till 10 in the evening or 11 in the evening. But for them, it's like, yeah, we do 1 studio day, 9 to 5, and we want a 1 hour break. You have 7 hours to track 9 tracks.
Did you arrange the string parts as well?
So maybe to go a little bit back to the beginning of the story, is that like I actually know like a conductor from Brussels who wrote my tune book out of the box. So that contains 100 of my tunes. But since I have not much theoretical knowledge, I can read a little bit of sheet music, but not really well. I'm much more trained by ear. I'm mainly autodidact. Went a bit to music school as a kid. Yeah, I run into him, and then we started talking, and I asked him, could you write my tune book if I send you all recordings of my tunes? So I said, yeah, I gladly do it, because I love your music. Years ago, I had a feeling like there is a reason why I met him, but I don't know yet why. And that's very funny, because I'm much more aware these days with those kind of meetings. I remember that when I moved back to Belgium after I got divorced and I got into a new relationship, and I actually had my new partner listen. She was like, yeah, you should totally make it. You should bring it out. She got me motivated, and then I was like, yeah, I just don't know where to start. And then she said, yeah, just call this guy from the sheet music book. He's a conductor. He's in the classical world. You know that you want strings on there, so just give him a call. And then I called him, and then we were talking for more than 2 hours on the phone, and it was just so good vibes. And it's like,
The universe just came together for
yeah.
you.
And he was like explaining all the options. He's like, yeah, don't worry. You want a string quartet, a trio, just a cello? I don't know. Like you want a full orchestra? I know people. I can do it. It's just depending on your budget and your timing and what you really want with the music. To answer your question, if I wrote the string arrangements, it was like a collaboration, and actually that was a very interesting process.
Future Mel here, just interrupting to say that there's been a section edited out of this free public podcast and it's extended on my Patreon. Hartwin will go into a lot more detail over the next 5 to 10 minutes on his collaborative process with the classical conductor from Brussels. So if you're interested in his process of collaborating to arrange the string parts for his new upcoming album Unfolding, you can subscribe to my Patreon to get that. The link's in the description. Now back to the interview.
For me, it changed my whole idea around collaborating, and now I'm going much more from this angle, like I don't even need to understand when you do you how exactly you're gonna do things. I don't need to understand that. It's just, do we vibe or not? And that's it. And then I will do me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's in the room, it's about having that full ownership over, this is what I bring to the table. I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Do you like it? Yeah, let's vibe with that. And it's collaboration, I think, is really where it's at. It takes time to get there, on a human level. I think, to get into the headspace, really special that you had that. Just off the back of that, actually, a lot of the things that you do, a lot of the things you create, when we've spoken in the past, the way you talk about your music, the way you present it, it comes across in a very similar way to, for me, light states, nature, seasons, the world around us. Those are my influences when I'm with my instrument, when I'm creating, when I'm working on ideas. You are very similar in that sense. In my interpretation, the way that you like to spend a lot of time in the woods, in nature, a lot of your music for me paints the picture of where you're at. And I'm a very visual person as well as, I mix the audio and the visual in my head. So you paint pictures in my mind with your music.
Okay, that's nice.
Is that something you're striving to do?
Yeah, there has been another long period of time, and there was a place where I was, I think, struggling to make this like full-time musician thing work. You feel you really want it, but then like sometimes when you're in this very hard place where you're like, it's not going the way I want it to go, and I'm like just having too little income, and I'm like between like still doing like a part-time shitty job that I don't want to do just to make things work. Then you're like, there was this short period where I was like, yeah, it's instrumental. It's just never gonna happen because there's no singing. I think it's very nice that you have those moments because you can swift that around and you can come to the understanding that it's just your mind who's telling that. And then I got into this point where I'm like, that's what I really like. I get disturbed when there's singing. Not always, of course, there's fantastic singing. But I'm not scared to say that for me, like 80% of what's out there with singing is just about the same thing. And it's pretty boring and pretty disturbing because it is so determining your movie in your head if you listen to that. That's like the great thing for me also with like reading a book that has no images. I think what all fans of the Lord of the Rings books would say, that before the movie is there, it's just like everybody has his own Lord of the Rings movie before the movies are there. That's just how it is. Yeah, I just came to that understanding that that's for me very important, and that's why I make instrumental music. Why do I always end up making like this more intimate, calm, soft songs, and then there's this place in my career where I never actually get playing at 8 or 9 in the evening on a proper main stage? Because you're like always put away with, it's this guy with his accordion doing calm stuff. Let's give him a gig at 3 in the afternoon on the smallest stage we can find. And then there's this time in my life where I'm like frustrated about that. Yeah, I should figure it out. I should make like this massive band. That didn't happen to me, and I just come to this place where I'm like, but that's just how you perceive it. Things started rolling for me the moment I said, but I do love to perform at 3 in the afternoon. Then I'm done with it. I can enjoy the rest of the festival. And I can go see other things, and I can go and eat an ice cream with my son. I recently had some performance at 11 in the morning, and I liked it even more. I was like, it's brightness. Why do we always perform in the dark?
It sounds like you might be kind of leaning more towards children's entertainer, because that tends to be where festival promoters will put you. It's like, we'll put him on with the kids stuff,
Yeah, but even that idea, I don't know if I agree to that. how I perceive the world right now is that we're just like, who has decided on that? Who has decided that we do festivals with famous bands in the evening when we're drinking beer? And who decides that that needs to stay like that forever? And the more I'm wondering about that, the more I come across festivals where that's not the case at all. It's much more focused on families, and we're like, I had this idea, something that I would like to do, but I just need to find time for it. But it's gonna happen at some point, is to just make a festival in a really calm place where, like, I know so many bands from the folk scene who make this kind of atmospherical, instrumental, beautiful music, only with acoustic instruments, but then do a real acoustic festival. Nobody ever does that. Make a festival where you have 4 or 5 venues that fit like maximum 40, 50 people. When it's sold out, it's sold out, you're bad. And then you just come and listen to the concert and you're just gonna shut up. Because it's completely acoustic.
I would be there.
Yeah.
Let's organise it. I'm totally up for it. It'll be 11 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. Bosh, done, in bed for 9 with a hot chocolate.
Why do you not do a festival programmation on a Saturday between 11 and 5 o'clock, and then like there is like eating all together, and then there's just gonna be a festive meal with like super nice food, and then after that we're gonna do, the day is not over, we do a bonfire and we can do like acoustic jam session, just sit by a bonfire. And it's like everybody can be there in the same place because it's not like 10 bands playing.
That's a popular idea with a lot of people because if I'm honest, that's kind of what I've grown up with. Not necessarily the daytime festival, although, yeah, I have done that. But, you know, the evening stuff, just a nice meal, jam session, bonfire, you know, a lot of happy memories I've got there from Morris dancing. So that's my gateway drug into the folk world was through the Morris. And most of the time you would be dancing at a festival during the day. You'd be knackered in the evening, so you wouldn't go and see any of the bands, but you'd be sat around the campsite with a bonfire, with your guitar, singing songs, whatever. Yeah, that's definitely something that is unique. I don't know of any other festival that's like that, so I think you could be onto something.
England has a bit of that, you know. Last year I was just having an open day on my tour with Ross, and he lives in Bristol, and we just hopped on the train and we went to Chippenham Folk Festival, and I think that's a bit like that kind of festival that you're describing. It's just lots of Morris dancing, and for me it's like, even though I'm not a Morris dancer and I probably never get it because I'm not British.
Hey, there's some really good Dutch sides and French sides, so never say never.
Yeah, but still, I completely did get it. It is not about the dancing. It's pure community. That's how I perceive it. I was all day, I was just sitting in the grass and looking like these performances, and like everything is a bit like, I'd say, yeah, the PAs are not really good and the stages are not like really amazing, and like everything is a bit, a bit off. But it needs to be like that, and it's just full of people who have like some cousin or aunt or whoever is gonna dance in a Morris group. So they come along and then they have a beer and then they watch, and that's brilliant.
Morris is family, and you're absolutely spot on. It's community, and the sweet spot is when you've got a side, as we call them, or you've got a group of people who like to do the dance well, make a good performance, but they all get on. It's rare. There's a lot of politics in Morris, which we won't go into, but it's the sweet spot is when that comes together, and it's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, and also I was just watching so many Morris dancing that day that I like. It's a ritual. The dance is a ritual, and it gets people into a certain place where they feel more than an individual. Yeah, where it becomes some kind of trance as well. That's what also for me playing together with other musicians should be. You should have such a connection that when you play music together, you kind of leave that individual state. And then there is something that's bigger than just you or the other guy on the instrument. Yeah, to go back a bit to the question you asked, is that like, yeah, I am now in a place where I'm just really happy with what I make. And that it's calm, and that it's leaving lots of space for people, their own story in their head, and leaves space for emotion. The more I accept that that's who I am, the more nice response you get from an audience, because the more real it gets. And yeah, that's just all it is about. I just transmit, and then that energy reaches somebody else, and that does something to that person. And I think in that sense that, like, I have heard from many people who say, I don't go often to instrumental concerts, but it was so relaxing. It's almost like a meditation because there is no song text with an author intent that like, I really want to tell something here. And I don't have that with my tunes anymore either. Like it's notes that come together.
Wanting to inquire more deeply to some of the things that you gave away with us on the Patreon, Melina, the other night, which, by the way, guys, you can sign up to my Patreon to access Hartwin's wonderful tutorial on how to write your first tune. You talked about many things, but the thing that I really want to know for a personal level, but off the back of what you just said, when you are composing, when you're writing, what headspace are you in? Do you have a kind of process to get yourself into a headspace to write? And then when you're there, when you're creating, when you're coming up with something, how do you know that it's good enough to run with? You mentioned about kind of giving it time. You know, that's a really important thing. But for me, I always discredit so much of what I create. I'm learning not to. I know over the years, creating From Darkness Comes Light, there were so many tunes I never gave light to, I never gave time to. I recorded them and I went back to them and I've put them in my tune book because I realised that there was something in there, or I used it on a different project. But how do you run with your own ideas? How do you have that self-belief in, my ideas are good enough?
Oh, that's a very hard one.
Oh, I thought you were going to dive in and say, oh, I'm just this kind of relaxed spiritual guy and I just absorb things from the universe. Because I get that vibe from you.
No, I think you can separate. Not liking what you created doesn't automatically need to go down with like, I find myself a bad composer. Or I judge myself as not good enough as a person. If you can separate that, then you can just keep up self-love. That's...
Yeah, separate the art from yourself.
Yeah, that's just like in that moment you just do. And I think if you go from that place, it's already gonna get easier. Probably the more you do that, the more easy things come out that you actually appreciate because you already appreciated yourself even before you wrote the tune. I think that's one thing. I'm a lot in this process why I'm like, nah. And it's very hard to say why it is like that.
You write so much. I mean, you're such a prolific composer. I mean, the projects that you just keep, they pour out of you is how it seems. I mean, you said that you had 3 albums worth of stuff in 2 years because of COVID, a very weird time. So obviously, creatively, we had a lot of time on our hands. How do you create that much stuff and just be able to pour it out of you? Where do you go? Like, is there a physical travel? Is there a mental kind of meditation that you do, or a process to get yourself in that headspace? Complete freedom with your instrument?
I just try to go there right now to answer that question. It's difficult to answer.
Also difficult to answer when you're sat in front of someone on a camera as well. Maybe for you it's not something that's conscious then. I don't know, maybe it's difficult to put into words because you're not aware of it.
I think it's like that it is not very hard for me to do that. So it's a natural thing. It's a natural thing for sure. It's more about taking the time to do that. And I recently also like, I'm in a better place now with creating new things because I had a bit of a blockage when I became a father with like also that idea of like, I need to sit in my rehearsal room and I need a place where I'm not disturbed. And then I was like also coming again to the same point, like, whoever told you that? So now I'm like Simon is playing at home and Bill is cooking and like there's all kind of things going on. There's noises and I'm like, oh yeah, let's bring out the accordion as well. And let's see what comes from there. Yesterday, I think I made something, it's not even a tune yet, but it's just some idea by just watching my son play and watching Bill cooking. And then like, it's like all one big room. And I'm just sitting there in the corner with my accordion. And I'm like, yeah, what I said, just always record stuff. And I love it a lot that like in the recordings these days there's so much other noises, like Simon screaming things and like it's great. And that's for me a very important part now that I get back to creating without I have no time, I have no silence, I have no time, I have no whatever.
It kind of goes back to what you were saying, earlier with, just being a dad now and like having to roll with the punches of fatherhood and a child who's developing very quickly. It's like you just have to roll with it creatively.
I think for me the challenge is not so much in like how to write so much stuff or how to create so much, but what it brings along is that like for me sometimes I get into this place where I'm like, okay, I can't do anything else in my life. I have been stuck in so many places in like, why do I play the accordion? You can't do, or diatonic accordion, you can't do anything with it. Or it's like you could joke that it's not even a real instrument. And why do I not play the piano? Because like imagine that like then you start to make this whole scenarios in your head that like if I would have the same composing skill, but I would play the piano instead of it's like it's bullshit.
Yeah, because those musicians who do that still have blockages, still have problems.
Yeah, and they're with shitloads of them. I mean, wherever I come, people are that's a beautiful instrument. Like out of the folk scene, I'm saying like then people go like, yeah, what is it? How does it work? It's like there's an excitement around that instrument, and then I feel also like I let a few people hear the strings together with the accordion. It's like, wow, it's such a the combination is so refreshing, and then I'm like, yeah, that's a huge benefit because piano and strings is just so oversaturated that it's like Spotify's full of it, or the world is full of it. And then those people need to have very outstanding compositions to actually get like, oh wow, it's so refreshing because the sound is there anyway all the time. It's the same with people playing guitar, I mean.
But I think it's interesting, like, having this conversation because, you know, creative problem solving, just as a concept, yes, in music, but also in life. And I honestly think, and this is partly why I started the podcast, is because we all experience problems in life, but they can be solved with a bit of cross-pollination sometimes, or just a conversation of, I'm having this problem in my life, but I'm also having this problem with this composition musically. I can't get around this repetition phrase or whatever it might be. And I think if you're able to give it time, step back, relax, breathe, you know, walk away from it for a second, you know, the brain does kind of work it out eventually. You know, it's magic enough that it's got that knot untangler in there and it's just sort of like working away in the background. And for me, I find if I'm actively, furiously, usually angrily trying to work it out in the moment, it's never going to work because you're full of the wrong chemicals. You've got to walk away from it and have the patience to give it time.
Yeah, exactly. It's so much the human brain. It's just always making this swift. Like I'm going also in this place like purely like branding wise or career wise. You need to present yourself to the world, and it's like how do I want to present myself? I also have been stuck in this place where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm this folky dude. I'm never with the hip guys, you know? Whenever you go to this like music industry meeting with people from different genres, it's always like there's all the hip guys from indie and like rock and like and in Belgium it's even this joke, you arrive and be like, the guys from the folk music scene. You're like, fuck that. And then again you come in the same place. It's like, but it's your brain perceiving it, telling it, saying it, and that's not gonna happen anymore the moment you actually decide that like how do I feel very good in how I present myself, and why can I not just take certain elements from that world. And actually I follow people on social media who are from other genres and who are maybe perceived by the world more as like it's hip and trendy, and I'm like, just mix it up. Just try to look at how they do things and then just do it.
Well, this is a perfect opportunity for me to just fangirl slightly over your branding and the way you present yourself, because it certainly washes down to me. And I see your gorgeous photos on your Instagram grid and all of your albums, the way that trad studios just have a look. And I just admire that passion and dedication, because it looks easy, but it is not easy to get that branding. I'm very homemade. Like, I feel very homemade. I've had some wonderful help with photographers, but most of the time it's me on a selfie cam, you know, and I do my own graphics. And I'm happy with the way it looks, but I know it looks a bit more agricultural. And for me, you're one of the hip kids, you know, over here looking around, all the hip kids here look like you. So if anything, you're hip in the folk world.
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much. That's very kind. It is hard. I'm not. There was a time I was not good with those things either, and then I'm like, I'm not good with it. I can't spend money on an expensive iPhone, and then you still start doing those things. And you know, if I can share where I'm stuck at right now, what is my current stuckness? It's really like music industry in the world and folk music scene, like Womex. For people who don't know that, that's the World Music Expo. It's like some place where all the managers and agents and bookings and festival organizers come together, and then artists will play maybe some showcase if they're like selected. You just walk around in there with your own business cards and try to sell yourself, and which is something where I'm currently stuck at, because I have been doing it for 4 or 5 years. It's once a year in another country. And also even all the smaller network events, even in Belgium, there's one coming up this weekend. I just sit with it and I'm like, are you going there? Because there's like this fear that if you don't go there, you're like an important part of the scene. You should be there, and you should explain yourself And in that sense, I have a great partner because she reminds me so much of that. It's like, you don't have to explain yourself. I also think like it's full of people who determine that world of music exactly in what we were talking about. In like, these are the festivals. You need to subscribe. You need to do a showcase. If you didn't play there, you're not gonna play here. And it's like, but why do I walk into that? And why do I not put my energy in like thinking completely out of the box into a new world where I just direct myself to finding those people who are willing to do it in a completely different way?
It's the industry machine versus the creative life, isn't it?
How can I, as an individual, in a very small way, I'm not like this guy who wants to make the world a better place. I just think like, if there is anything in your power to say, I'm gonna do something slightly different.
It's what we're made to believe, that this is the way we should go because money and security and exposure. But actually, the creative lifestyle, it's your own choosing, and that can look like a myriad of different things. That is full of insecurity because you're beating your own path. I have a sense of what I want my life to be. It's not always successful financially, but I try to believe that it's a happier existence, even if it's like, even if it's crazy and I'm crying and, you know, all sorts of things are going on. But it's my own creation, and that's something that I value very highly.
Yeah, but that's super important. It shows that you can shape the world. That's something I have accepted. Reality is bendable. You can redirect the reality, your reality. The danger of criticizing the current system of how the music industry works right now, or even the folk music industry, let's say, is that going into this place of, I had a conversation like that yesterday with my bandmate about like, yeah, what's all this thing about money and what's all this like, and you know, like everything get criticized, the whole idea of, almost the whole idea of living, or like you performing. And then like, I'm very careful with that because I'm just questioning that, is this really the only way, and is everybody following that path because we don't know anything else? I'm questioning that. But then in conversations with my partner, I also learned that she's very good at reminding me that like, you have the right for a very wealthy life. Everybody has the right, and everybody should strive for it. We often have this idea, I think especially as musicians or our artists, that like, alternative is a financial struggle. I have an alternative life, so I have not much income. And that's a ridiculous idea. The idea is that like, I criticize or I ask questions about the current system, and then I look into, can it happen? Can I bend the reality into a more beautiful place, but where there's even more wealth, where I actually aim for earning more and more performances and more of everything, more beauty in general. I don't say I have all the answers, but I find that interesting. But currently I'm very stuck with it, so let's not forget that.
Listening to everything you're saying, I'm kind of nodding and going, there's definitely the fear of going the alternative route is kind of been explained by history. It's explained by the media as, oh yeah, financial ruin. You know, that's kind of the creative antithesis, isn't it? Which is bullshit. Does it not come back to that idea of collaboration, which we were talking about earlier? You know, is there a way that elements of the industry collaborating with certain individuals or certain whatever within that, creating this new reality of this gorgeous festival, which, you know, the daytime bonfire festival, whatever we're going to call it, because that's the way to do it, is like lean into each other's strengths, but create something entirely unique.
Yeah, and I think we're living in a beautiful time in that sense, because I just see so many people around me who are becoming conscious about that whole idea, but it's just so related to, now I'm gonna go maybe too spiritual, but I'm like, it's so related for me to like traumatized people. And I don't want to say that like in the current folk music industry everybody's traumatized and so on, but last year it hit me, and it hit me from the perspective that like I was also drinking too much in there, and I actually came out from that event with like feeling very bad because I was starting to act pretty shitty because of drinking too much. And the reason why I was drinking is because it becomes such an uncomfortable place to be, where you actually start to like push certain feelings away instead of getting them out by drinking alcohol and numbing yourself. And then I'm looking around me and I see that everybody is doing that. And then I'm thinking like, wow, is that really a great place to do business? And what does it even mean to do business? And like, is it even a great creative space? I think that doing business can be very creative. It's like, we can talk about money. It's not, and I'm very careful to not be put away as this like hippie who's like, doesn't want to accept that money is a thing. Money is for sure a thing. It's a tool and it's very powerful. I just question those things. Yeah, I want to say it again. I question it because I also very closely look at my own behavior. Like, what happens to me when I go to an event like that? And do I want that? And like, maybe I organize a network event in 10 years, whatever, where it's like, yeah, you're all welcome, but we're not doing alcohol. Look who's coming. I don't know.
Very valid questions that you're asking yourself. I know of individuals on the English scene that have asked themselves the same questions and have changed their life. They've gone sober or whatever it is. You know, it's kind of certainly, as you say, the changes since coming back after COVID are significant personally and, you know, creatively, industry-wise.
But that works also on the other side. It's just like a positive note I want to end this topic with, is that like having like an industry event with people who actually really need to push down certain feelings. If you really try to focus your energy towards people who do the opposite, there is lots of those people as well, and then it can really accelerate very quickly into very magnificent things. I see the more I actually want to look for that, the more I actually see it, the more I see that there is already lots of people out there who are open to make these fantastic events where actually you would earn more as a musician, gather more people, and people who are really aware in that moment and really show their emotions and so on. So I think it's around the corner, but I'm just in this place where I'm a bit stuck in there, and I try to, where I'm gonna head from here.
You'll work it out. I have every faith. But thank you for sharing that. I think that's going to be really helpful for everyone to hear that, you know, musicians or none alike. We don't have much time left, but I just want to give you the opportunity to promote anything that you're currently doing. I know that Ross Grant, one of our own, our lovely English fiddle player Ross Grant's coming over to you for a short tour very soon. How did you two meet, and how did that collaboration come about?
Yeah, so Ross, we never met before, but he just wrote me a message and he said, I'm doing this tour around the world with videos during COVID time, and I just want to bring like one musician from a certain country and a certain tune from every country in the world. And he was like, Estonia seems to be very difficult, and I know that you're from Belgium, but you're living there, so could we do something around Estonia? And I said, yeah, sure. I was just releasing my solo album, and that was very much inspired on Estonian places and so on. So we did one tune from the album, and then I just really enjoyed what he did with it.
He's got such a lovely way about him. I know him from the Morris scene and the session scene. He's got such a lyricism to his playing, and he can really go off into beautiful realms.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm surprised he doesn't play more, or he's also very much into organizing stuff. But I'm like, when I hear him play, I'm like, whoa, you could do lots of stuff. But yeah, we run into each other that way. And then at some point he contacted me. He was like, yeah, I see you come and teach in Halsey Manor, not that far from Bristol. Do you mind to spend like a couple of days at my place and just we play some tunes, and then I'll get us some gigs, which was quite exciting because we never played live together. And then we were just like, okay, we have gigs, so we better make it work in 3 days' time. But we did, and it was great fun. And then we went to Chippenham, and we were just gonna go and hang out there, and we got to know each other, and that actually got us a gig at Chippenham. So for the English listeners who would like to see me and Ross playing, we're gonna do a concert, but also a bit of Balfolk at Chippenham this year. That's in May somewhere. I don't know exactly when, but
the last bank holiday weekend. Yeah,
bank holiday weekend in May, Chippenham Folk Festival. I look so much forward to it because I've been there now. What else? There's probably coming also like a decent venue tour in November 2024 with Ross also in the UK.
Lots to look forward to there then.
Yeah, the main thing I just want to present is the new record. So just keep an eye on my social media. Yeah, the project that is the closest to my heart from all the things that I have made so far is the record that's gonna come out now. It's a big step forward for me in overcoming fear, and just doing and just making what I want to make and make my dream. I hope that in the summer I can share some more news about that.
This is unfolding, isn't it? This is
unfolding. Yeah, that's gonna come out. I decided I want to bring it out in my around my birthday.
That's lovely.
7-8 of February. It's gonna be live gigs in Belgium.
We'll get the train. We'll come over.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening, and it was very nice to do the Melinar and teach a bit about composing and talk here about my projects and about my vision. And the great thing about podcasts is that there's just so much time that you can actually get a chance to really explain what you're what you're thinking about. So that's really nice. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. And I honestly, we went in directions I didn't even think we would. I'm looking at my questions and like we've kind of answered them all in very different ways, which fills me with great joy. It's exactly what I want out of this, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you on a much deeper level. I've always felt like we've had this great connection.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, always nice to see you around for gigs, and yeah, I wish you all the best, and I hope lots of people join your Patreon and your lessons, and keep going.
Thank you so much. And the same back to you. All the best with the continuing journey of fatherhood and unfolding.
Yeah.
And we'll see you again in the UK very soon, I'm sure. So thank you very much, Hartwin.
Yeah, thank you.
And there we have it, a fantastic episode with Hartwin. Thank you so much for sharing so much of where you're at right now in your life as a new father, and how you're kind of combating all of these different obstacles to continue touring, continue writing, but also take care of your young family. I think it's going to be very, very helpful for other people out there who are in your situation. Also, thank you for sharing so much about how you perceive the music industry. You are at a level that is far beyond where I'm at myself. You've done a lot more touring, you've taken part in a lot more professional networking events than I have. And that was a really interesting insight for me into how that bit of the industry, the machine, the music machine works, and yeah, why it's actually not for all of us and how we can potentially make it better. I think there's a lot more off the back of that I want to explore, but hopefully just listening to this, somebody is out there who might have been wanting to collaborate with you on that. So fingers crossed, maybe we're in for some positive change, changing the world off of the back of this Chatterbox episode, who knows. I would definitely be first in line for the Daytime Bonfire Festival, and if anyone else out there is interested in that, me and Hartwin, let's get involved, let's make that happen, because it sounds absolutely gorgeous. Down below are some links to Hartwin's music, his upcoming tour dates and tune books and merchandise and things, so do make sure you go and support him. Subscribe to his Facebook and his Instagram and stuff like that. If you've enjoyed this episode, you might be interested in the extended edition, which is exclusive to my Patreon subscribers. Check that out for extra Hartwin content. Make sure you like and subscribe, share this to anyone you think is going to be interested in the content that you've just listened to, and please support this podcast by liking, subscribing, leaving a rating, whatever platform you're on. It's all going to really help to boost this new podcast, so thank you so much. This month over on my Patreon, and I can't quite believe that I'm saying this, but the incredible Anne Neopold from Belgium is going to be my guest. She's going to be sitting down with me to record an episode of Chatterbox, which will be out next month. But if you don't want to miss the live Melinar tutorial with Anne, she's going to be doing her version, as she always does. If you're not familiar with Anne, she is a one-off, an absolutely fantastic musician, but an incredible tutor. She has written a tune specifically for my Patreon community. She's going to be going through that, teaching that. It's a bit of a bluesy Breton style tune that she's told me, so it's going to be involving a blues scale and some left hand rhythm variations. It's going to be good. You will not want to miss this. There is no one else out there like her, and her approach is unique, so get on board with that. If you don't want to miss the live Melinar with Anne, it's going to be happening on Monday, the 12th of February at 7 p.m. UK time. You can check out the link in the description to that. And if you can't make the live, you can catch up with the recording in your own time afterwards. That's everything from me for this month. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to tune in next month, and I'll see you then. Cheers, guys. Bye.